And we are on to our next speaker. Our next speaker is John Ellis. John is the principal architect of strategic infrastructure at Angie's List, where they are working on their most ambitious technical transformation in the company's history, transitioning wholesale to functional and reactive platforms with microservice architecture. Prior to Angie's List, John worked at Scott Jones' startup ChaCha, where he helped construct a resilient platform that answered natural language questions in real time. John also operated as chief architect of vCloud at Bluelock, a local cloud service provider that operates as a premier partner for VMWare hosting. And John has logged many caffeine-fueled nights as an open source contributor to Apache Camel, EasyNetQ, CrysalSpace, and even a few laughable Linux kernel patches for home phone line networking. Yes, you should laugh at that. John maintains a few open hardware projects such as kid-friendly Hack Clock and Homebrew Garage security platform with a focus on making gizmos more accessible to hackers of all ages. Please, let's all welcome John to the Spark stage.
I got 3 extra seconds. Yes. I'm going to burn them. All right. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Chris. I wanted to talk a little bit about why people are angry with me usually. People come to me often as a software architect and say, you're making my life more complicated. You're making things more complex than they need to be. And because I'm a jerk, I will often say, yes, I'm intentionally making things more complex. However, my job is to make sure things are less complicated. Take the complications out of things. And the big thing here is that complicated is not necessarily complex. So you think Pascal, when he created the first mechanical calculator, could actually carry digits. It was wheels, it was spokes, it was nothing huge, but put together, it had this complex and rich behavior that built us the first mechanical calculator. Alan Turing, when he created his generalized computing machine, he just had rows of tape, a pen that would put 1 or 0. You could read from it, and it had 6 little operations. That is it. But from that, we have the entire discipline of computer science, including what governs your cell phones, your servers, everything. So with these small rules, we have complex behavior. But what is complicated? Sometimes we have to do complicated things. Sometimes we send people to the moon. We do heart surgery. We have internal combustion engines and transmissions that got us here. We have enterprise software that we have to install. These are often complicated things because they require top-down planning where we've got a mission control, and this is true even in enterprise software, to actually govern things. We have to hire the best experts in the field, and we have to retain them. We have to keep them. And we have rational leaders that make predictable process decisions that decide things for us. And we have to have this tightly run ship that gets things going. And this may resonate with you in some of the organizations you've worked with. As opposed to complex systems, which are things like, for better or for worse, school systems, judicial systems, criminal justice systems, electric vehicles, best of breed technology. And these guys are a little bit different in that there is no mission control. There's not a centralized control here. Instead, we've got constant adaptation, evolution, iteration. And an expert in the field isn't necessarily going to help you because you've already got a system that's well underway. So putting the most brilliant person into school systems is not necessarily going to help because you've got these decentralized people that are already working in a system that's running itself. So an example of this kind of emergent behavior that you see out of complex systems is kind of like what you see out of Conway's Game of Life. And if you're not familiar with this, it's pretty easy. It's if you are crowded out or a little square is too sparse, it will die. It's like a biological cell. If you are got an empty space and cells around it, it can reproduce. It can create a new little cell. Or you just get into stasis and you kind of stay the same. These are simple rules. But from this, you get very complex behaviors and even emergent patterns. You see things kind of animate themselves. You see weird emergent repeating patterns. You even see things that might occur in nature occur. And just from these simple rules, and that is it. And so that's what you're really looking for, is that emergent behavior. Now, there are signs that things are overly complicated, particularly in the products or the projects or the technology that you're choosing. If you don't know what success really looks like, if you can't explain the problem during Thanksgiving dinner to your grandmother, if you cannot really focus on what the feedback is, what you're getting back, if you have a focus on tools, that's signs that you're often making things complicated. If you're talking about this awesome Ruby app that you've got, but you're not sure of the problem that you're trying to solve, that's a sign that you're making things a little too complicated. However, you could have a complex system that's doing its own thing. How do you not take in tons of mailocs and worry about that? If you've established a consistent vision, if you have a context, if you know what the outcomes might be, then you can generate a solution that will help you get there. And then you can kind of take confidence that you've got this complex system that you will see if it is going according to your vision or not. Now, if anyone's tried to use Angie's List, you probably have seen things are a little complicated right now. And those are things we're trying to fix. It is kind of hard to navigate. But things we've learned are how to dial down that complexity, how to make things a little bit easier to do. And we've done that in a number of ways. With the technology platform, we've done this from taking these huge monolithic applications that you have to take down everything in order to push out. We've instead made these microservice architectures, tiny little apps that are small enough for just one person to reason about and put inside of their brain and think about and then deploy independently. You can see this even in our teams, where instead of trying to build a process at the top and try to enforce that all the way down, we're letting teams kind of decentralize, find their own groove, work things out on their own. And if they can do that, then you can have teams out in Seville, in Toronto, in wherever we like, and as long as they are working towards that vision, towards that goal, you can see the emergent process go along, and you don't have to govern them. So, a few things I've had to kind of teach myself and learn as we go on how to avoid overcomplicating things. One is stop with the knee-jerk reactions. So we often think that reacting quickly is a good thing, that getting data in and then jumping at it is a good thing. Often it's not. You want to avoid trying to tweak the dial, saying, well, if I estimate this way, if I figure out bugs this way, if I go from 1 week sprints to 2 week sprints, stop. Just let things kind of work on their own and give yourself a buffer for failure. If you fail, that is the system working on its own. But don't try to over-govern it. At the same time, do have consistent rules. Now, rules are not process. Process is not rules. With Conway's Game of Life, we had 5 little rules, but no real process to it, and things emerged from that. But if we identify the right goals and we allow things to organize on themselves, things will come up. And an important part is we have to let information flow. We have to let the teams know how sales are going, how the product is pitched, how many people are seeing things. This kind of information flow is tough to do, but it is important in order for us to evolve, to adapt, to change our mindset and how we're seeing these problems. These are important things. So I think they're being very generous with my clock, which I appreciate. But it's good because there was one part that I never had enough time in my own rehearsal to get, and I wanted to land this. This is a book from 1977 about architecture. And instead of being about software architecture, is how to build communities, how to build town centers, how to build offices. And it was talking about how people communicate and collaborate and work together. And what's interesting here is their conclusion was work is a form of living with its own rewards. And to treat it as something else is inhuman. They didn't say, it's bad. You'll get bad results. Your quarterly results will go bad. It's inhuman. So the idea is to get the right people, give them a space and an environment to collaborate, let them work together, and then let's see what comes out of that. All right. Thank you.